This is More to Say with Randy Naughton. Interesting conversations with interesting people. Welcome into another edition of More to Say with Randy Naughton. It's our podcast where you can get on all streaming platforms. And of course, I'm all over the socials, as the kids say, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you name it. Just follow at Randy Naughton and you'll find out what we're doing all the time. You'll see all my other stuff, all my other content, and we'll link you all the time to all of these podcasts. Today, we have a really interesting guest, somebody we've known for a long, long time. And if you watched me at all on television over the last, 30 years in St. Louis, you know that we've spoken to Dr. Joseph Ojile a number of times. He is a sleep expert. In fact, he is the CEO and medical director of the Clayton Sleep Institute based in St. Louis. But Doc, you're known worldwide for your work, keeping people asleep for a good reason.
I hope so. And I hope that it's for St. Louis. And so really excited to be on with you today, Randy, and have enjoyed so much our working together, our relationship and friendship. And you've been such a great advocate and leader in St. Louis. So I'm honored to be on with you as always.
Aw, that's really sweet. Well, one thing that you've taught a lot of people about is, and I think it's just now, becoming really, really important to people, is the importance of sleep, where, now people are wearing watches and tracking their sleep and what kind of sleep. Does that bring you immense joy to see people are actually paying closer attention now?
I've never been asked that. And the answer is yes. It has been very exciting and you've been part of this journey in the last 20 years to see sleep go from something that was sort of a curiosity at first. And then I had a few doctors used to tell me it was a fad to something that now is quite mainstream. And so how I would say is, if you think back, and this is way before our time, but 50, 60 years ago, hydration. If you go back in the military, Randy, remember when you were kids, you'd see little guys carrying those little bitty canteens.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Okay. That's kind of the level of hydration is that should have lasted you all day. Well, now hydration is something, right? Go to the ballpark and every child athlete has two water bottles and they're
right.
Okay. So hydration is very mainstream. And then in the 80s and 90s, cholesterol and fat intake became a thing, and it took quite a few years till now. That's kind of part of our ethos, is monitoring cholesterol. Well, sleep's following, I think, a similar journey, which is in the late 80s and the 90s, it was a curiosity. Now, as you point out, sleep has become mainstream for health promotion. And how do you sleep to perform in athletics? How do you sleep to perform in your job? And if you're having difficulty with sleep, maybe it's something I should go see somebody and attempt to make better and improve. And so, yes, thank you for that. It does bring joy.
So you mentioned that, sleep is now health related and people are taking it more seriously and realizing that better sleep equals better health. How does that happen? How does better sleep equal better health?
Well, so we know what we infer from that, and that's kind of the key question. We know if people get poor sleep, there's things that happen to them that are not what we prefer, right? So what's the thing that we know? From raising your daughter, people know from raising children or being children, right? When you don't sleep well, the first thing that happens is you get sick because your immune system malfunctions. That's one of the most well-documented bad things that happens from sleep. Adolescents know it because what happens, their acne gets worse. So we're seeing all these related sort of untoward or bad things that happen from lack of sleep. Your question, which is, what are the good things that happen with sleep? Believe it or not, is more difficult to answer, because we want the good things to happen. So avoidance of helping to reduce bad things is good, right? But what are the good things? Well, one of the things we ask folks, which is a little bit vague, right, is, do you feel good when you get up during the day? How do you function during the day? But if you take it a little further, we know now that you need good sleep for memory consolidation and learning. You need sleep to promote stable weight. You need good sleep to think clearly and to make good decisions. So now we're seeing that these things are coming into part of health promotion versus everything being a sleep disorder. So in our view, you need a good night's sleep for a good healthy life.
Yeah, and I think I'm living proof of that because obviously I was on that shift, the morning show shift for decades, literally getting up in the middle of the night, trying to get
Hmm.
to bed at a normal hour. It was a job in itself maintaining that schedule. And yes, I think my health probably suffered a little bit. Definitely cranky many times, needing a nap. It's like, do not call me in the afternoon because I need my nap. But you talked about sleep disorders, and just because you don't get a good night's sleep doesn't necessarily mean that you have a sleep disorder. However, a lot of people aren't getting sleep and don't know they have a sleep disorder. What are the triggers that would let them know that?
That's a wonderfully asked question. And by the way, I want to compliment you and John. You are two people that really worked at their sleep health
Yeah.
during your careers, and it's my impression that it prolonged your sleep, your careers, and your health. So a lot of kudos to you on that.
Thanks.
Um, so on sleep, when you start talking about could I have a problem? So a few things. One, some of us are programmed that we can get by with a little less sleep or a little more sleep, and that's normal for them. But if people are tired during the day, if they don't ever wake up rested, if their spouse or family tells them, hey, look, you're making funny sounds, you're snoring, you're making noise, I watch you gasping, you're having abnormal behaviors during sleep, like striking out, yelling, walking, if your legs are kicking all the time, these are some of the telltale signs that you need to take this seriously and consult with your physician about it. And that's the first thing. The most common thing, believe it or not, is people who have inability to get to sleep or stay asleep. And they're some of the slowest ones to come and get evaluated and
Mhm.
discussed. And then those that are sleepy during the day all the time.
And obviously, the biggie is snoring, right?
Mhm.
I mean, my husband
Right.
won't mind me sharing this that, he's been a snorer from a long time. He got hit in the face with a baseball years ago in college, messed up his septum, can't breathe. So he wears a CPAP machine. And true confessions, and I know a lot of people out there would not admit this, I snore too. And I came to you years ago, and my husband's, nudging me, and we have an adjustable bed. He was raising the bed just to get me to shut up because he's a light sleeper. And I went to you and I had a sleep test, and you determined that I do indeed have mild sleep apnea, which I have no problem talking about. So we ended up using using this thing.
Yes.
I'm holding up this little oral device, this mouth device, and it's called, I can't remember the name of it. What is it called? It's the Excite OSA, and basically I put it in my mouth, and it stimulated my tongue for 20 minutes a day. And I will say it helped diminish some of my snoring, but guess what, Doc? It didn't always go away. Um, so
Hmm.
now, so now you know what I do? I use mouth tape. I literally tape my mouth shut at night, and it
That's
diminishes my
great.
snoring. Is that something you recommend to people too?
Yeah. Well, the good news for you, yes, it can work. Mouth tape is an old thing that we do have people use. And so in you, one, you'd strengthen your tongue muscle already, which is what that device did. Very interesting little device. And then your apnea was so mild that a little bit of mouth tape coupled with what you did with Excite, I think is a great solution for you. So you like the mouth tape.
I do. I mean, it's not the most attractive thing when you're going to bed, obviously, but who cares? It literally keeps your mouth closed where your jaw doesn't come open,
Hmm.
and your throat. And we attributed it to my age. I'm getting older, and middle
Yeah.
aged, all that stuff. So anyway, so let's talk about something called um sleep divorce, because
Okay.
I read something about a new study. Here it is. According to a new survey, 45% of men say they occasionally or consistently sleep in another room, compared with 25% of women. Now, sleep divorce sounds kind of harsh. It sounds like, oh my God, there's trouble in the relationship. But is sleep divorce, and can sleep divorce be good for sleep and relationships? Do you recommend it to people sometimes?
So let's unwind that. That's a very hot topic and a very interesting one. So what happens as people have been together for a period of time, their sleep, whatever their sleep habits are, may not fully mesh up. So say, for instance, you're getting up in the middle of the night, but your spouse works a regular day job, right?
Right.
That could be a troublesome issue for some folks, resulting in sleep deprivation, irritability. All these things end up affecting relationships because when we don't get good sleep, many of us become irritable and we aren't ourselves, right?
Right.
The other two most common things we see are snoring or sleep apnea, and believe it or not, restless leg syndrome. People who at night, if you do it, it's called periodic limb movements of sleep. They kick their feet at night and wake up their bed partner. So there are some fixes for these things, but sometimes either the fix is disruptive to the other person, or the fix is imperfect and that person is struggling. So how we counsel people, Randy, is it's something that should be negotiated out and talked about. Actually, it can be the sign of a healthy relationship that you can work through that.
Yeah, but
And
let's be honest, Doc, not a lot of people would take it that way. Well, I think I'm going to go sleep in the other room. You're snoring. Oh, you don't love me. Oh, what's wrong with our relationship?
you're exactly right.
Yeah. I
You're
mean,
exactly,
but you have to have a mature conversation about it, I
yeah.
think, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. What we urge people is they have to negotiate or have a conversation about it. It isn't a sign, and in fact, again, it's more a sign of loving your spouse or your partner, because you're saying, hey, look, you know, there's times when we're going to be together for romance, but there's other times when I need to get enough sleep to function and be a good partner to you. And so the numbers you're quoting, I think, are really consistent with what we see. We see people that end up doing this and they're generally happy with it. Now, there are the other side, which is they're doing it, but they're coming in and saying, can you help me so I can get back in the bedroom?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
That's a great idea. And then I think that's a good approach too.
it is. It's a
Yeah.
much, as you point out, it's a mature approach. I think it's easier for those of us that have been married for a long time. You've got a wonderful husband and you're great. And you guys have come, had a long careers that have different schedules. And, and when you've been married for a while, I think it's frequently easier to have these conversations. Probably not quite as easy for younger couples, but that's more speculative on my part.
I will say I do know a young couple. They've been married 5 years and they frequently separate into sub bedrooms because they have a busy schedule the next day. It's good to see this, especially with Gen, what is it, whatever it is, Z or XY, or I don't know what it is. The younger kids,
Yes.
they're prioritizing sleep. And oh, look at my watch tells me I got this many
Mhm.
hours of REM sleep. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty neat to see, because I know
Yeah.
you've been talking about it for years and years. I think it's starting to sink into some people at least.
The younger people, they're they seem to be, at least many of them, are more committed to sleep structure and sleep health. So they're monitoring, for instance, when their children, their babies, they're going to bed, they're getting up, they're keeping strict schedules. That's very different from how things were before. That frequently it can be helpful. I think it is generally. It can be at times a little bit stiff, but that it's okay. I mean, people are doing what they have to do.
Yeah.
And younger people, if when they get health conscious, are starting to do it. You're starting to see sort of the middle-aged folks as they're starting to mature. And again, people are living longer today. So middle age now is to like you're 80.
Yeah.
Um, they're really saying, if I can do these things, if I can start having better structure and sleep health, I think I can live a longer, healthier life. That's exciting stuff.
Yeah, for you, I'm sure it is. You sent me an article, and I want to touch base on this. You sent me an article about some of the many devices and things that we can buy or use to help in so many ways: getting to sleep, staying
Mm-hmm.
asleep, like noise machines, light machines, and then there were these things that help you dream better. Little headband that you put on. How much validity do you put in these kinds of things?
So, and the article I sent you, I sent it, with purpose, because these are things that are, they're still a bit on the fringe. Not the noise machines, of course, those have been around for a long time, but
Right.
some of these things where they're altering your sleep state, your sleep stages while you're sleeping, there's some science behind them, But as far as for widespread use, you're not seeing that quite yet. But what's interesting is that an international business newspaper ran an article about all those devices to get to your very point, how mainstream
Yeah.
has sleep become as a topic, that was worthy, right? And we're seeing, because we're fortunate to be doing research for people from all over the country and all over the world, some of these devices are coming. We recently were looking at a sleep mask, Randy, that you wear. For instance, one way you do it is wearing it on an airplane. It gives you milliseconds of light at the right time to try to move your sleep time so that you don't have so much jet lag when you land.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
how cool is that, right? And actually, the technology came out of some very high end research that was done out at, I think, Stanford. The military was very interested in this, so they've helped support it, and it's out there. It's called Lumos, Lumos, I think tech or sleep.com. You could put Lumos sleep mask.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just one of the technologies. I mean, we now for restless legs, we have a little band that you put around your kneecap if you aren't successful on the medications. So these are just examples, to your very point, of all these technologies now that are coming out.
Right. And you've always, as the director of the Clayton Sleep Institute, as a researcher, as somebody who's been doing this for so long, you have always been going around the world, giving lectures around the country, being involved in studies regarding sleep. Uh, do you think that we are on the right track? Do you think that we are going to be using more of these things that you just mentioned as mainstream? And do you think we're going to be getting better sleep in the long run?
So one, I think you're going to see more. I think we're continuing to see, and we're going to see more science-driven assistance to help us stay on track with our sleep. It's clear that is some technology that's here. The one thing I would add, Randy, I think you, especially given that you came out of the sports side of things,
Yeah.
is if you look at, like, for instance, the step counter on your phone. Well, that's really popular because you can say, well, I only got 8,000 steps yesterday. My goal is 10. And you could go get 2,000 more steps, right? The great thing about the sleep monitoring information is it does give you information. The big question is what is the action item? How do
Ah,
you change? So that's a work in progress. The other part of that is I do think over time that you're seeing that these technologies are helping promote better sleep. It's happening. It's really happening, and for many people rather quickly. It's the issue of acceptance, which was efforts like you that you're making to get that
yep.
out there in the public eye. But we're seeing, for instance, this is all public information. There's sleep apnea pills being worked on, and we're involved in that. There's better devices for sleep apnea, better devices for restless legs. There's new strategies for insomnia. While there's sleep aids that are available, we're doing more and more behavioral work, and sometimes using some of the techniques that you've described with these devices. So all of this is becoming more popular and more mainstream. We do have a problem that we don't have enough sleep specialists to help provide some of these specialized care.
Oh,
So we're trying to teach more of our primary care colleagues. I didn't
oh,
mean to
wow.
interrupt.
That's it. That's an interesting notation as well. So my advice to people out there who will, okay, and I'm speaking as a woman, I don't snore. Oh my gosh, I don't snore. That's not feminine. That's not ladylike. That's not, oh my gosh, it's embarrassing. You know what? Guess what? Yes, you do. And I have no problem admitting it. I have no problem admitting that I've tried to put this oral device shock thingy in my mouth. And I have no problem letting people know that I now tape my mouth shut when I go
Mhm.
to sleep, which I know is a blessing for many people. Oh, she's finally taping her mouth closed. Be quiet, woman. She she's
That's
finally
fine.
not she's finally not talking. But it's okay to admit that you're not getting a good night's sleep because you or your partner are snoring. It's okay to go in the other room at least for a night to try it. this is just my advice. This is common sense advice because I've kind of lived through some of this with your assistance. I mean, true confessions, you're my husband's sleep doctor as well. And you've helped our family, and sometimes we get great sleep, sometimes we don't because of dogs, whatever.
Right.
But I
You're
was
kind to
willing,
say it.
I was willing to try a lot of things. So thank you, doctor.
You're welcome. But Randy, I think you make that whole, what you just said is so valuable, because one of the things that we now know that we didn't know so well years ago is that when you start getting, as people age, and we all are, thank God,
Yeah.
as you age, the rates of snoring and sleep apnea go up exponentially. And so everyone doesn't have to be there. There's a little bit of resistance. And that's why it's so helpful that you're sort of beating that down, which is everyone doesn't have to go on a machine, right? We'll hear people, they don't want to come in because they don't want to go on that mask or that machine.
Right.
Well, not everyone needs the same solution. We have other solutions. That's a good solution for many people, but what you went through is a great example.
Yeah.
You did some other things that have worked out great. So it's encouraging people to at least have the conversation about, hey, let's see what's wrong, if anything, and here's the options for you. Then they can make a decision.
Right. So with that said, Doc, hopefully we've convinced people to A, admit, yeah, I think I might have a sleep issue. And B, I'm going to contact somebody to help me. So if somebody wants to contact you at the Clayton Sleep Institute to maybe at least have a consultation, maybe get a sleep study, and maybe end up with tape on their mouth or one of these things in their mouth or or a CPAP machine, how can they get a hold of you, Doc?
So if you want to call Clayton Sleep Institute, 314-645-5855, they can help if you're trying to schedule, like, for instance, a home sleep study or an in-lab, or if you're looking to see what research projects we have going on. If you want a consultation with myself or my partner, Dr. Jeff Harris, you also could call our practice office at 314-849-1500. And we would, of course, be happy to see you and work with you and give you our opinion. And it's our privilege and honor to be able to do that. And we're proud to have been doing it in our community for so long.
And you're so good at it, and you're so nice.
Thank
And of
you.
course, you're online as well. People can look it up. So I appreciate you taking the time and moving your schedule around a little bit to join us. I think this is valuable information, and you make it so easy to understand. And I know you're a scientist and a doctor, but I mean, for me, you dumbed it down enough where I said, oh, I get it now. So I thank you very much for that.
Thank you. I just hope people feel good about it, and they think about some of these other things. And some of the hot things that are going on now are some of the new sleep technologies. Again, improving sleep apnea care and therapy, the new restless leg possibilities, and then the insomnia behaviors. Those are all kind of new things that I think can improve people's lives in the next 3 to 5 years as we go forward together.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Doc, for joining us on More to Say with Randy Naughton. I appreciate your time this morning. And for everyone watching or listening on whichever social media platform you like, please like, share, subscribe, review, all that good stuff. And if you finally admit that you have a sleep problem, get a hold of Dr. Ojile. Thanks, Doc. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Andy. You have a good one.
All right. Thank
Bye
you.
now.
Bye-bye.
This has been More to Say with Randy Naughton. Interesting conversations with interesting people. Be sure to like or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.